Hey everybody. Hold on, let me just make this timer be quiet. And hiya! I am going to do a really simple stream today. We're just going to play Sonic the Hedgehog on Genesis, which yesterday I really played for the first time since maybe 2008. And before that, I was playing it on the Wii Virtual Console, and before that I was playing it really only at my friend's house, and once in maybe 92, perhaps. We rented a Genesis while I was at a relative's house. We did a road trip to an out-of-state relative's house, and we rented a Genesis, and it's really the only time I got to spend a lot of time playing it. So we'll, and this, I bought from a retro game store a few years ago, this copy of Sonic. It's the first time I ever owned it, the actual original cartridge. And this is really the first time I'm playing it with an original Genesis controller. Now, if you're familiar with the past streams I've done, I actually was more familiar with the 8-bit versions. Just make sure I have my mic on, because I'm sure I'll find a way. Okay, I do have my mic on. And so I grew up with the Game Gear version because, oh, excuse me, I need to press start. That would help a lot. Yeah, I grew up with the Game Gear version, and then I got the Wii Virtual Console version maybe 2013 and just played it for like maybe 15 minutes. Just because I was going through I realized eventually the Wii shop channel was going to eventually close down because Wii was way out of date by then. So I just was downloading as many retro games as I could on it, including the home console version of the 8-bit remake of this game. Or, well, it's not even a remake, it's just kind of a completely different game. It's not quite a port either. They just made an original game, a translation, I suppose you could say, where instead of making a direct port of this for the 8-bit hardware, they really played to the 8-bit hardware strengths and made a version that did justice to, I think, this version. In my opinion, I think this is better than the 8-bit version. At least so far. I'm just more familiar with it. That helps a lot. And once I already ordered my analog Mega SG, I went ahead and imported the cartridge for the Master System version so that I could play, to see what that version was like and play it on the original cartridge once I got the Mega SG console here. The Mega SG is what I'm playing it on here. You could type in ! Mega SG. You could see the list of commands on my scrolling information bar that give you various information that might be useful. Yeah, I got 50... Oh, I got more than 100 rings. That can't happen on the 8-bit version. In the 8-bit version, I mean, whether that's on Game Gear or Master System, your ring counter will restart if you hit 100. But if you have between 50 and 99, you can warp to the special stage, which happens automatically when you reach the end of the stage. Now, I'm very unfamiliar with this version of the game. The only chances I got to play this... Oh, come on. No. There we go. The only chances I got to play this as a kid were at friends' houses, and usually we'd usually switch back and forth, you know, based on whenever someone would... Whoever... We just pass the controller back and forth whenever someone would lose a credit. And due to that, my friends who had Genesis, who got to play this game more often, usually had the controller because I didn't last that long. And really, since the early 90s, I never got to really spend time with this game until I downloaded it on the Wii Virtual Console. I never owned it, even when I started getting into retro gaming. And it's funny thinking in 2001, when I was buying old systems like the NES and Super NES. Yeah, that's one way you could look at it. I mean, you didn't technically lose. It's not saying out or lose or fail. It's like, it's the goal. So I was trying, because to play the special stage ideally, I guess the primary goal of the special stage, you can earn rings and 1-ups, I believe. Well, you can obviously get rings because there are rings in the stage, but you're trying to get 1-ups, I think. No, are they rings in that special stage? I'm not sure. I'm talking with using the logic of the 16-bit version where there are rings in the special stage. I don't think there are rings in the special stage. You're basically trying to get the Chaos Emerald that's in the center, and it's very tricky to navigate the spinning maze. And that's another thing that changed when they went to that the 8-bit version. They didn't have the confidence to have that huge spinning maze when you were playing on the 8-bit system, so they went ahead and got rid of it and replaced it with a platforming stage, which I guess you could say is more akin to... I mean, there's some elements that are akin to a pinball machine. Some of the levels actually do have flippers, which could make it really one of the earliest depictions of Sonic as a pinball, which you would see later on in Sonic Spinball. But really what I think they... Hold on, what was I getting at? What was I even... Yeah, just basically just the fact that I never got to spend much time with this game, so in spite of being a lifelong Sonic the Hedgehog fan, I was in all the Game Gear games, because that's the system I had as a kid. I had... Come on! Oh, it wouldn't let me run back and jump through the ring. So we're not on good pace for 100%ing this, but I really will be surprised if I even beat this game today, so we'll see how it goes. Because I really never even beat the 8-bit versions of this, like the handheld versions of this. I never beat those until I went ahead and played them on for the stream, actually. Because as a kid, well, between the games not having a battery backup, so as soon as, you know, if I was in the backseat of Mom's car and, oh, we're at the supermarket, or if I was playing, waiting for an audition, or some kind of a doctor's appointment or something, and it's time for the appointment, it's time for the audition, then I just turn the game off and lose my progress, and I really didn't think anything of it, because I wasn't used to the idea of, I just want to turn my own volume down a tiny little bit. Because when I play... I did some tests to make sure the audio balancing between my voice and the game is good, because sometimes... Well, yesterday I did a double stream. I was playing Sonic on Master System, and I beat it for the first time on stream yesterday. I did have a power outage. I guess I should mention this. I'm having some weird electrical problems in the house I'm broadcasting this from. Oh, shucks. Okay. I had some weird electrical problems where my... Yeah, I don't know what's going on, because hey, Kalaka Boy, thanks for showing up, but I checked out the VODs, like the VODs that are saved to Twitch, because if I look at my own streams, if I look at my own, as I'm streaming, my broadcast software is also recording a copy to my PC as a video, and that'll always be exactly what my camera, my microphone, and my capture card are capturing. But when I look on the VODs on Twitch, I can see how it would appear to people watching it. And when I look at the stream, like when I was having bad connection problems and I was getting a lot of dropped frame errors, I would look at the VOD and see like how skippy and spotty the stream quality was. But here, when I look at the... Okay, I don't watch Twitch on the app, so... Because I was having problems, Marth, you missed it. I was having some streams, on one stream where I had to call it early, just because the connection quality was so poor. And I actually did pay to upgrade my internet package, so that I could have a more reliable stream with no dropped frames. And in doing that... Woo! And in doing that, I've since then had no problems with dropped frames. So it may be the Twitch app, perhaps? Because I looked back yesterday, because I remember I was in Spring Yard Zone yesterday, Kalaka Boy, and you were saying my stream was being spotty, and I went back and made sure I looked at that part on the VOD that's saved to twitch.com, that shows what Twitch was receiving from me through my internet connection. And the stream looked fine for me. And everyone else I talked to that was watching it, I guess maybe they were all watching on desktop, and they weren't having any connection problems. And one thing, yeah, there's a yeah, and what was happening, I wasn't losing power to my PC. My PC was on, but the I was losing power to the router and modem. So if if the internet goes out, I'll have to pause. If the internet cuts out, I'm gonna have to run outside and hit the circuit breaker. Now, I have a power strip, well, a battery backup, and part of the reason I've had instances where I did have a brief power outage in my room, and I actually have a power strip, well, a surge protector that also has battery backup on it, so I have about maybe 10 minutes of power for my computer and all my equipment between when the power goes out and when the battery backup will run out of energy. So I have enough time, and it alerts me. There's like a little alarm on the strip that goes off. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. So I have an alarm that tells me, oh, you're out of power. So I have time to run out to the power box, the switch box, and reset the circuit breaker. So I know that is reliable, and I have one like that where the router is elsewhere in the house. But I think maybe because of the fact that the router is the power strip is drawing additional power to keep the battery backup charged, and it seems like that maybe was putting so much stress on the electrical system that, I don't know, I guess that that it was triggering the power problems ironically to begin with. So for now, I don't have any power backup on the router or the modem, so I'll be able to jump right back onto the stream. But if it happens once, if you see me, if the stream vanishes, just hang on for like maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and I'm gonna restart the stream. I'm not even gonna rely on the reconnection thing. I'm just gonna go ahead and end the stream and start it again. But if it happens a second time, I'm not going to bother. Because an electrician was supposed to come today, but they never called back. So if any work is done on the power system, it will happen probably tomorrow. Yeah, and there have been all kinds of weird power problems for the last like 7 or 8 months or so. So it really until recently, it was as simple as just going out and hitting the circuit breaker. So. It wasn't too much of a concern, but now that it's becoming more disruptive, it's oh, man, I don't know which way I'm going in these mazes, so yeah, I'm really not used to which way to go to get the Chaos Emerald. Yeah, we don't even have an appointment with the electrician yet, so we'll see what happens. But for now, everything's stable and nothing else in the house that's heavy duty, like no big screen TVs or computers are being used, so it should be all right for now. I don't know how long this is gonna go for. We'll see, because as I'm going, I don't know what the deal is, but when I first started this, even just sitting for not even the half hour I've been here so far, I just get I'd feel as though I'd have symptoms that would indicate that I'd been playing for hours on end. And that was not the case, without getting up and stretching. And so it's difficult for me to stream even just a couple of hours without taking a good 5 or 10 minute stretch break. Well, we have a central AC, but it's in use for more often than not because of the part of the country we're in. Very mild winters, very mild winters, and hot springs and long summers. So. It's not like, oh, we weren't using the AC for a long time. And it's a central system. It's not like we have window units or anything. But yeah, it was happening even in the winter time. So whatever's going on, something needs to get looked at in the house's electricity anyway. So it's time just for it to be investigated. For a seal that is somehow lava-proof, it's rather impressive that he managed to get captured by Robotnik and trapped inside that robot to begin with. But we won't think too hard about that. And after playing the 8-bit versions of Sonic, both the Game Gear and Master System versions, because my last stream I went half the stream was, well, I did a first stream where I got like 99.999% of the way. This is where I died last time. Okay, come on. Yeah, I got, oh shucks. I got 99.999%. Oh, yeah, sorry, Clacka boy. What I was saying was, I think it may be something having to do with your app, and I'll type it in. I'll just type this in stream real quick. I watched the stream. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that. I don't even know if you're still in the chat, but now it's going to be interesting to go back on the VOD and listen to how loud that keyboard is, because it is a mechanical keyboard with MX Cherry Blue key switches, and which I mostly got for the tactile feel of it, because I am a writer and the feel of me writing on the keyboard feel is important to me. And I didn't get it with streaming in mind, because I know that those keys are louder than a typical... Yeah, Clacka boy, if you can... yeah, but if I'm playing... It's one thing if I'm just typing for a moment or putting in a quick command or something like that, but I want to play the Commander Keen games on DOS, and... to play those games, well, especially if I want to have the proper period feel, I'm going to need a proper... I mean, back in the day, I played it on an IBM Model M, which, if you're a keyboard enthusiast, is kind of a legendary keyboard for its feel and everything. But if I play Commander Keen or any other DOS games, I don't want I'm gonna see if maybe I can set some microphone, some maybe filters or settings for my mic, so to muffle the sound, or like a noise gate or something like that. Because if I'm gonna be playing Commander Keen for, you know, 3 to 5 or 6 hours, listening to like that might be really annoying for my viewers, especially since I really want to use the stream as an opportunity to introduce viewers who are not familiar with Commander Keen and other DOS games to those games. So I don't want to turn them off by having a loud keyboard. Maybe I'll see if I can get a mechanical keyboard and with some rubber domes on them, because you can't get a really good keyboard. The same keyboards, you could actually get like Model M replicas. Some company owns the rights to reproduce the parts to make Model M style keyboards, and if you want, you can have noise reduction features added to the keyboard. So if I do that, I want to go ahead and see, maybe invest in a keyboard where I can have that. And plus, I did have limited table space with the setup I have, and I do have a dual PC setup. I'm not using 2 PCs now. I'm just using one PC and my Analog Mega SG for the gameplay. So I'm using the other monitor I sometimes use from my laptop. I'm using that for my gameplay, and then to my left is the computer I'm running the broadcast software and encoding the stream off of. So, actually, let me tilt my microphone a little bit towards me. That probably sounds a little bit better. Okay, there we go. We just want to wait till that's probably my favorite enemy in these Sonic games, is the purple spiked caterpillar guy. I think he's called Caterkiller. Yay, got the invincibility, so we could charge through a lot of this lightning. but I still have to wait for the spikes. And I can't quite jump high enough to clip through. There you go. Now those enemies are really tricky, because this is not a thing in the 8-bit versions, but in the 16-bit version, which I'm here playing, when you defeat the purple robot caterpillars, the segments bounce around, and the spiked segments actually pose a secondary hazard. So I actually have been taken out in cases where I defeated the enemy, but then the remains were sort of bouncing around and struck Sonic, and he had no rings, so I actually did lose some credits to that. Woo. I'm gonna go back and see what's in this little alcove here. Yeah, but to be a lifelong Sonic fan and I told you my limited experience with the 16-bit version, but when it comes to Sonic, oh no! Oh, I'm done. I can't, okay. I don't think I was even intended to be able to get out of there, but I did. Yeah, it's weird to be a lifelong Sonic fan and have so little experience with the original game, the actual games on Genesis that people consider the classics that established Sonic as a gaming icon. So I told you my limited experience with Sonic the Hedgehog on... Actually, let me make sure I'm streaming under the right category. I'm just paranoid for some reason that I'm streaming under the wrong category. Yeah, there we go, Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, I could stream under Retro, but I guess I'd rather stream under Sonic for now. And the funny thing about the Retro category on Twitch is that it's not an actual legitimate official... It's not an official category that was created by Twitch. There is a PlayStation 2 game, a terrible PlayStation 2 game called Retro. I think it only released in Europe. And it's several very bad recreations of old arcade games from the 80s. And it was called Retro. And people who streamed like various old video games that didn't have categories for them were just streaming under that old PlayStation 2 game. And someone went to this, because I think the box art that it uses for all the different game categories, that it pulls from automatically, someone went on that site and changed the box art for the retro PlayStation 2 game, the game that's actually specifically called Retro, on the site with the image that is now there with like the arcade machine. It says, oh, like Retro Twitch or whatever it says. And that's why when you stream under Twitch, it will always say shooter, because that was one of the categories the retro game on PlayStation 2 was filed under. And for some reason I'll never understand, I'd love to know the backstory for this, when you stream under Sonic the Hedgehog, one of the tags that's automatically added, you can't take it away, it streams under educational when you stream under Sonic the Hedgehog. I do not know why. And there are no unique categories for the Game Gear or Master System versions of this game, so sometimes when I do stream Game Gear and Master System Sonic, I stream... Oh, shucks. Okay. I stream it under the Sonic the Hedgehog category, even though that category is really intended for the Genesis game. And I couldn't quite get my layout to look... I couldn't get my webcam layout to... My layout with my game screen and the box art and the webcam, I couldn't get it to look satisfactory with the full screen box art. So I ended up using this sort of I sort of cropped off the top of the actual Sonic the Hedgehog North American box so that there's still some space for me. And now it has occurred to me, I could theoretically just shrink the entire box down. Kyle TX500 his layout is like that, where he has a box, and then the box art of the game he's playing is inside the box, but I'm saying the word box a lot. I don't have to make it so that it's necessarily as large as possible, as you see here. So maybe in future layouts I will go ahead and do that. I'm next going to be streaming on, let's say, it should be Monday night. Hold on, let me take a look at my document here. I didn't make any... Yeah, it'll be Monday night at 10. I'm going to be streaming Namco Museum Archives, which recently came out. I think it's on Steam, PlayStation 4, and the Switch. And it has the NES version of Pac-Man, which I never played it on NES, but yeah, it's kind of cropped off on the top. I mean, the most important part of the box is there. Oh my gosh, that was close. Yeah, these are a lot of moving objects going on for a Game Gear game or a Master System game. I could see why they. Yeah, my experience with Swift Pro, my experience with the NES version of Pac-Man was actually through the NES Classic series on the Game Boy Advance late in 2004. Oh my gosh. In 2004, 2005, they released a lot of Game Boy games. I mean, a lot of NES games on the Game Boy Advance. And it's interesting because thinking back, that's really the last time a lot of those games, like Super Mario Brothers was on there, Legend of Zelda was on there. That is the last time a lot of those games will ever get a standalone physical release. You know, I didn't think of it that way at the time, because if anything, then now those games would be released on some kind of compilation of if it was a physical release or just as digital downloads. Now, what I'm most excited about, and so on the Monday night stream, is probably basically just going to be, it's going to basically be kind of a variety stream where I play several of the games that are on the compilation. But now Marble Zone, and this is something I'm not really familiar with, because I'm used to the second and third acts in the 8-bit version are called Jungle Zone, and the second and third acts are Bridge Zone and Jungle Zone, so this is something I'm not all that familiar with. Now, because of all these springs and stuff. Okay, so unfortunately, it sounds like it's a problem with your mobile setup, because now that you're on a browser, it seems like you're having a better time with the stream. Yeah, I appreciate you going through the trouble of actually switching the device you're watching on just to catch me live. Because I don't know what could possibly be going on. It sounds so strange that only my stream would have that problem on mobile for you, but other streamers it worked fine. I'm not streaming because I'm playing. I only have a 720p webcam, and because I'm playing these 16-bit games, I don't have a maxed out bit rate. Maybe that has something to do with it. It doesn't make sense because it's not like I'm streaming at a legitimate, I'm streaming at a recommended bit rate. It's just not a maxed out bit rate. Because I'm not trying to. I don't know. I said this yesterday. Something about those spiked balls. Something about the shading on them makes them look like an object from a DOS game to me, and I don't really know why. So it's just interesting being so unfamiliar with this right here, because really, as a lifelong Sonic fan, to be so unfamiliar with the actual original Sonic the Hedgehog game is very unusual. And for Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic and Knuckles, I am essentially totally blind on those games. The most I've seen of Sonic 2 is watching friends play it when I was visiting friends' houses in, 92, 93. I've never really seen anything of Sonic 3. So, when it comes to those games, I'm really blind for it. So, you'll actually get to see a Sonic fan since 1991, their blind reaction to the Sonic games that kind of made Sonic what it was. Like, they're just at the height of Sonic gameplay, because I only played the 8-bit versions as a kid, so. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, with all the money that Twitch is encouraging people to invest in their experience by subscribing to their favorite streamers and buying bits, and I really feel like they really should focus more on the app and have it so that there's so many, it's ridiculous how many features on the just basic functions are only accessible. I mean, for a streamer, I get to understand maybe some streaming things might be limited on the app. But I mean, but IRL streaming out live out in the field is a thing as well. The app should just be as robust as possible for viewers and streamers, because there's so many basic things that you can only do as a viewer on the desktop environment. And I understand that subbing and buying bits, I understand that it's more expensive on the app, which is crazy. I'm guessing that might have something to do with Twitch having to pay some kind of overhead, because when you buy... What's going on? Oh, okay. I didn't realize that that was a physical object that was limiting Sonic's movement. So I'm sitting there like, why can't I jump? Why can't I jump? Okay, that's an actual physical object that's an obstacle for Sonic. Yeah, I'm guessing since when you buy subscriptions and bits on, I don't know about Android, but on iOS, it doesn't do it through the Twitch interface. It kind of does it through the phone's own interface. So perhaps due to that, Twitch is taking some, Apple's taking some kind of cut on the fee that the user is paying. So I guess to counteract that, maybe it's more expensive to sub and to buy bits on mobile. But it's just a mess. Okay. Now, what's interesting to me is that I feel like with some of the themes of Sonic, like industrialism versus conservationism that are present in Sonic, when you play the 8-bit versions of this game, you start off in Green Hill, then you go to the bridge zone. So they're bridges, but it's not like a civilization or a town or a city. And then you move on to a jungle, and then you move on to a labyrinth, which are ancient ruins, where there maybe once was civilization, but no longer. So, in that version... Oh, wow. Okay, I was actually supposed to be heading up this whole... Oh, okay, there's an alternate path, I guess, that leads you to here. Yeah, so in the 8-bit version of the game, you're gradually... You don't really encounter any industrialization or cities until you get to Scrap Brain, which I think goes well with the theme of it, as the island was all natural, and then Robotnik built this city and this base at the top of the mountain. But here we have this mountainous area with this city in the background that looks more like more of a civilian city than Scrap Brain, whereas Scrap Brain looks like it's just probably a bunch of factories and a bunch of robots marching around programmed to work in the factories and do Robotnik's bidding, whereas here this looks like a city where people might actually live. So, okay. Alright. Alright. There we go. Whoa. Thank you. I don't know why, like, the animals inside the robots really don't match, or don't really have any... You'd think, like, the Buzz Bombers, there might be a butterfly or a moth inside, or a bird, but it's always just... I think the animals generated are random. I don't think there's, like, a unique animal for... Okay, that one was a pig. That one was a chicken. Those two were... Okay, that one was a pig. Those other two were chickens. I don't know what stage I'm on. Am I on Act 3 already? It's funny, because I'm just kind of zoning out more so than I did in the... Yeah, I think I'm on Act 3 here. I'm kind of zoning out more so than I ever did in the 8-bit Sonic games. Maybe that's a good... I don't think of that as a bad thing, but maybe it's a sign of better game design that I'm just so... Oh, come on. Come on. Don't be a butt. There we go. There we go. That's more like it. Now, I just want to... I expect there to be a ramp down here. Okay. Like these... I don't know, it's just... Oh, I didn't... yeah, I didn't quite have the full 50 ring count to get into the special stage there. And man, it is no joke getting a full 50 ring count in order to be able to pass to the special stage. Okay, now we're in Spring Yard Act 3. I had an incident on stream a while ago where I spilled my water while I was on stream. Fortunately, I had 0 viewers at the time, and plus the quality of the stream was so garbage, that's probably why I had 0 viewers. The quality of the stream was so bad, I stopped streaming for a couple of weeks until I could responsibly afford to upgrade my internet. But but the reason I spilled it, because this has the bottle has a latch and a lock on it, so it's very difficult to accidentally open it, or if I were to knock it over deliberately, it would not spill everywhere. But because of me having, I used to wait until right before I streamed to take my water bottle out of the fridge, and because of that, there'd be a lot of condensation that formed on the bottle, and because of that, it slipped between my fingers. So now I take my water bottle out of the fridge about an hour before I start streaming, so there's no condensation all over it. Okay. No more fireworks, you guys. And due to that, now I can firmly grasp the bottle and there's no dew on it, so it's not trying to slip between my fingers. And really objectively, if I'm trying to keep cool, because I have central AC in this house, but I also turn my fan on usually. I turn it off while I'm streaming to accommodate the microphone, because it's really loud on mic if I have the fan on. So when it comes to keeping cool, I really don't want to. I guess there's this notion that my father always had. It's like it's better to have like room temperature water in terms of staying hydrated, even if it's like hot out, because yeah, it feels refreshing to have a cold bottle of water. But now your body's trying to maintain a certain internal temperature, and when you drink like a really ice cold bottle of water, now your body is sort of wasting energy trying to warm up the liquid you just ingested, and that could, according to him, it makes your body spend more. It kind of ironically heat itself up more. I don't know how factual that is, but it makes enough sense that I don't necessarily go out of my way to have ice water. Okay, here we go. Now we're rolling. Okay. Now it's funny, there's only one Speed Shoes icon in the entirety of the first Sonic the Hedgehog game as far as the 8-bit versions are concerned. And they placed... Actually, let's see if I can go to the... What's to the right? I want to know. Oh. Okay. I mean, I liked going right more, because last time... I don't think I got... I'm already doing... I haven't practiced in between my stream yesterday, but I'm definitely doing a lot better than I was. There we go. Okay, I see what they're trying to do here. They're trying to trick me into using this, the invincibility. I'm guessing there's a bottomless pit down there. Not there, because I know that there's... Come on. The Okay, so that doesn't work on Robotnik. Let's see if I could do this single credit. Wow, he went for a spot that already had a block taken off of it. Can I actually... Why does he keep going for that? Oh no! I knew as soon as I jumped, I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna fall into the gap right there, aren't I? They really should start you right next to the boss. I think it's silly that they make me go all the way back here. Come on. I don't have time for all that. Sonic probably agrees with that sentiment. But even here, where there are these fast segments, okay, actually that wasn't so bad. Time for revenge. And Robotnik wasn't acting normally anyway. I think he somehow got trapped in a weird... Oh! Oh, that's game over? Jeez. Alright. Now, one of the first... Okay. Let's see if I can do this code. Up, down, left, right, hold A, press start. Wow, there's the level select. I learned this level select actually from the Archie Comics Sonic series. They actually had this code in there. Stage. Yeah. Let's go to special stages just for fun. We don't have to go all... We don't have to... Okay, so... Actually, I could count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 18 stages in this. Okay. Let's go to the special stage. Just for... Oh, I don't... Okay, this is not... I don't think this is the first special stage. I think maybe it warps you to a random special stage. Okay, so there are rings. Oh no! That was close. In the special stage in the Genesis version. Now... I'm mostly doing this just to get practice in the special stage, because when I'm finished here, it's actually going to warp me. There's like zero chance. I don't really consider this cheating, because there's zero chance I'm actually going to get all the Chaos Emeralds anyway. And it's not like this is a score attack run. So I don't really have too much of a real tangible advantage in getting through the special stage here. I just want to do that for fun. And it's going to start us off, if I'm correct, in Green Hill Zone Act 1. So it's really just starting a new game with a little gimmick at the beginning. Yep, I already have 3,500 points. So, if that's a massive advantage, a game-breaking advantage, I don't know, but... Now, I wonder if anyone does, like, score attack runs of this, because I know they're obviously speed runs, but I don't know if anyone really goes for high scores in this. Or if just the act of doing the speedrun of this gives you so much of a time bonus at the end that is the way to get the highest score. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. Hitting the boxes in succession is very satisfying. Whoop. There we go. I don't know. I've had so many heard so many people talking about what a mistake Marble Zone is because it's so slow paced. But it's like this is a plot. I know this gimmick is speed, but they just didn't try to make a game that's all about the notion that Sonic is just running as fast as you can at all times. Seems to be something that's come about in the last 10 years or so. Because well, I am have a unique perspective because I am more accustomed to the 8-bit Sonic games than the Genesis trilogy and Knuckles. But I never thought my experience with Sonic isn't that it's always about just going as fast as you can, because well, like if you look at Marble Zone, that's like a very precision oriented platforming stage, and that's just what it was, you know? I've played some sections of some of the newer modern Sonic games where you're just constantly running, and I barely feel like I have any control over Sonic. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm, like, I don't feel like I'm constantly flying off the stage or having problems like that, but just the fact that I don't feel as though I'm playing the game. I feel like I'm kind of just watching a slightly interactive cutscene. Now, okay. There we go. We're on... Oh no. Oh no. Okay. Almost got it. If I just... No! I was on track to get the Chaos Emerald. Not that it really matters, because I'm not... Even if I beat this game... I doubt I'll beat this game today, frankly. Oh, I got an extra credit. That's cool. I doubt I'll be able to beat this game today, in all honesty. But I want to see how far I can get. and spend some time with it for a few hours. And after this, I really am going to say goodbye to Sonic for a while, because so much, like, maybe half of my streams so far have been Sonic streams. But I'm going to be streaming 3 times this coming week, and on Monday night, I'm going to be playing Namco Museum Archives, especially as I kind of fell off of this topic, but I wasn't talking about it before, especially the NES version of Pac-Man. And so, what I think is so awesome is that they made an NES version of Pac-Man Championship Edition, which Pac-Man Championship Edition is a game I've coveted on the Xbox 360 and other games where, well, other systems, and it was never available on a system that I owned, because in the Xbox 360, PS3, Wii generation, I didn't have an HD TV, so it really wasn't. Well, first off, I'm more into platformers than any other type of game, and especially in that generation, the PlayStation, even though PlayStation 2 was such a, and even Xbox had tons and tons of platformers on them. Oh, here we go. That's more like it. Now I'll have the speed I need to get up. Oh, doggone. I got bamboozled. There we go. So even though when playing the, even though PlayStation 2 and Xbox had so many platformers on them, the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 really, it seems like they just focused a lot on first-person shooters. I know that's a really extreme simplification of what the libraries of those systems have to offer. There's all kinds of variety on those systems, but in general, 3D platformers and even 2D platformers, platformers in general took a real downturn in popularity in that generation, and the Wii was the only home system that had a lot of platformers on them, either 3D or 2D. And plus, I only had a standard definition tube TV at the time, so I really couldn't experience the benefits of the PlayStation 3 and 360, those being HD consoles. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I never borrowed it, but I'd play this at my friend's house a lot of the time. Well, I wouldn't play it, I'd kind of just watch them play more so, just because, watch them. It was probably a couple of friends who had the Sega Genesis. But we'd hand the controller back and forth based on, you know, once someone lost a credit, we'd hand it to the other player, and because they had this game, they were very familiar with it and could play for a lot longer. So that's kind of just how it went. Okay. What is it? Now, when it came time for... Oh, now that... I have to keep on a particular topic and stay on it long enough to finish it. But when it comes time to stream again, I'm going to be playing Namco Arcade Archives. I'm going to play the NES version of... Well, I'm going to play probably all the games and have some fun with them. But they went back... That's what I was talking about. Pac-Man Championship Edition. Yeah, I'm... I kind of have I have strong affection for both systems. As a teen, I mean, well, no, I was a teen. I was not a teen yet, but back in the... Well, Genesis... Well, I knew about the NES, I knew about the Super NES, and I knew about Genesis, but it was really the commercial for Sonic the Hedgehog that actually was the first time I was interested in actually playing a game, and got me interested in a particular character or title. That's what got my parents to get me a Game Gear. And because of that, I was more Team Sega, but I had a relative who lived with me when I was a little kid who had a Super NES. I never really played it. I just knew about it. But, you know, you'd go to about... It seems like a lot of my family members tended to have Super Nintendos. I mean, most of them were people who lived out of state, so I didn't get to see them that often or see the games. They often had NES or Super NES, but then when I went to my friends' houses, they tended to have the Sega Genesis. So I have a lot of affection for both systems. Now, all that being said, my first real experience with Nintendo was when I got a Game Boy in 1995, and then after that, well, even after, I remember seeing banners for the Nintendo 64 outside of Toys R Us when the N64 came out in North America in late '96. Well, as for the music being superior, like, I believe the Genesis has an off-the-shelf sound chip, whereas with the Super NES has a custom sound chip made by Sony. I feel like the Genesis sound hardware, because you'll find people who will swear up and down, yeah, the Genesis hardware is totally, obviously superior to the Super NES. And then there's some people say the Super NES is obviously superior to the Genesis one. But for me, I feel like the Genesis does good, like, metal sounds. Like rock guitars, heavy metal. It does those kind of sounds really good. And then the Super Nintendo, when you have orchestral sounds, it just thinking of Dancing Mad from the Final Fantasy VI soundtrack. It sounds like what Nobuo Uematsu squeezed out of that hardware is just, like, absolutely incredible. Yeah, and it's funny because I played Final Fantasy 6, aka 3 in North America. I played through about half of that. Like in 2002 or 3, I had a ROM of it on a computer I had at the time, but I never properly played through it. Well, actually, speaking of Final, let me get back to what the games I'm going to be playing. I'm going to be playing Namco Museum Archives, so I'm going to be playing the NES version of Pac-Man, and they made a version of Pac-Man Championship Edition, which I wanted on the 360, but I never had a 360, and it was out on other systems too, but I just never happened to have any of those systems. So for the first time, Pac-Man Championship is coming to a Nintendo system, and it is an NES D-make. They went back and made an NES version of Pac-Man Championship Edition, which, right down to making it 4x3, and it's not just that they made, like, an NES-style game, with, you know, like, it's not like Shovel Knight where they made an NES-style game, but it's clearly more sophisticated in terms of the graphics and sound. Apparently, reverse engineers and tinkerers have gone through the Namco Museum Archives game files and somehow managed to extract the game data for the NES version of Pac-Man Championship Edition. And they actually got it to run on an NES emulator. If you have this version will run on real NES hardware. This is just how accurate they made this. So I'm gonna get to play Pac-Man Championship Edition for the first time, and I'll get to play it on I'll get to play it in a NES style, which will be a lot of fun. And also be probably messing around with all of the other games that are on there. I also want to get I have Volume 1 already of Namco Museum Archives, and a lot of those Namco arcade games I did actually play back in the mid-90s. There was an arcade near me that had a lot of, well, it wasn't an arcade, it was a skating rink that was basically frozen in time in 1985 or so. So there are all kinds of games that you wouldn't expect to find by the mid-90s that I just had access to. I remember playing Pac-Land. I think they had Rally X. So I do have nostalgia for playing a lot of these arcade games in an actual arcade setting, which for being born when I was, I guess that's kind of somewhat unusual. Usually when people talk about that, they were, you know, maybe a kid that was born in like the late 70s or very early 80s. But I got to play a lot of those games in the arcade. Well, at least a few of them. So I do have nostalgia for those games, and so I'm going to be messing around with a few of them, but I'm mostly probably going to be playing, at least tomorrow, Pac-Man and Pac-Man Championship Edition. And tomorrow, I mean the next time I stream, on Monday night at 10, is when I'll be streaming then. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon, probably 4 or 5 p.m., I will be playing probably a half hour, maybe an hour tops, because lately, I haven't been... I know my early streams, I'd play one game for an hour, then switch to something else for the rest of the stream. And for what my intentions with those streams, I really kind of stopped using that format. But now, I feel I'd like to go back to it for what I want to do next, because so Monday night at 10, I'll be streaming Pac-Man... I mean, I keep saying Pac-Man, because that's the main game I will be playing on it on Monday, but I probably will be playing the others as well. I'll be playing Namco Museum Archives Volume 1. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon, probably 4 or 5, I will be playing about a half hour to an hour of Namco Museum Archives. and then I'll be switching for the rest of the stream, probably no more than a half hour even, and then I'll be switching to Final Fantasy VII, which I have already downloaded on the Switch. I even already made a layout for my broadcast software for Final Fantasy VII, and I have not played that game since 2002, so I'll be having fun with that. That was the first game I played on PlayStation when I got my PlayStation in early 98, I believe I got my PlayStation 1, back when it was still just called PlayStation. FF7 Remake, I watched Pete Dorr play through it from beginning to end. If I ever get a PlayStation 5 or somehow get a used PS4, I would love to play and stream Final Fantasy VII Remake. I would be playing it in what they call classic mode, because otherwise I really don't feel I could keep up with the way the battle system works in that game. But I would love playing it in classic mode. I'd probably have a blast, because FF7 Remake, I enjoyed it tremendously. At least I enjoyed watching it. I feel like I do feel like Midgar was, when they announced that Final Fantasy VII would be the remake project would take place across multiple titles. Am I picking up Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles when it comes out on Switch next month? No, I'm probably not, just because I have this huge list of games. I basically only play games on stream for the most part, and I'm not too interested in streaming it. I'm glad it's coming out, though. I'm glad it's, being released, because it was, just stuck on the GameCube for a really long time, and I don't feel like that game got a fair shake on the GameCube, because of, to play it ideally, you needed 4 Game Boy Advances and 4 Game Boy to GameCube link cables, I heard it was awesome to play it when you had all that, 4 people and 4 players and all the equipment, but it was just complicated and expensive to get into. But I know just the ideas behind it are just really interesting, how, the world's been sort of infected and you're carrying around this power source that protects your party. I know that's something some people complain about it, and plus that was like the first Final Fantasy game on a Nintendo, or Final Fantasy related game on a Nintendo system since Final Fantasy VI, so it broke a new ground in that sense. But back in the day, Marth-chan, did you get to actually play Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles with multiple players using multiple Game Boys and a GameCube together? Because I never really talked to anyone. I've read reviews and impressions and watched YouTube videos by people who played it that way. Oh, wow. Yeah, so you got to enjoy the unique benefits. What I find incredible is that they never made a version of Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles for the Nintendo DS, because when you have the Nintendo DS, each player already has 2 screens in the palm of their hand, so it would seem like a really cool way to an ideal system to adapt that gameplay to the portable system. And to a certain extent, I kind of felt at the time like the Game Boy Advance GameCube connectivity with the dual-screen gameplay, I feel like Nintendo kind of was... The DS was kind of Nintendo admitting, okay, we can't expect people to buy all this extra equipment. We're just going to build the dual-screen concept right into the system. Which you could argue was the case with Wii U as well, but Wii U, I don't think Nintendo had any idea what they were doing. I mean, bless the system. I played it on stream a bunch of times. It's a fantastic little thing. But I wish Nintendo had more ideas for what to do with the gamepad. I feel a lot of the time like they made the system for Nintendo Land, and then after that they just didn't really know what to do with it. So... And it's funny because the Game Boy Advance to GameCube connectivity had a really bad reputation of being expensive and complicated with all these... You need 4 Game Boys, you need 4 link cables, but the only Game Boy Advance to GameCube connectivity games that used that setup were The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventures and the Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. I remember people thinking that the Pac-Man Versus, I remember people thinking that that game needed 4 link cables and 4 Game Boy Advances. You only need 1 link cable and 1 Game Boy Advance. And somewhat to advocate, sort of play devil's advocate for Nintendo, I'm guessing that Nintendo might have imagined that Game Boy Advance owners would own a Game Boy to GameCube link cable as a standard accessory, the way a lot of Game Boy Advance owners owned at least 1 link cable. And with that in mind, maybe it wasn't so unreasonable that they expected that they, you know, oh, we'll just make this game. So if you have 4 Game Boy Advance owners and a GameCube, then you could play the game, but really it was, oh gosh, there's a shield over there to the left, and I forgot about it. No world record attempts here. I'm a lifelong Sonic fan. I've been playing Sonic since 1991, when Sharky Man? Yeah, I've been playing Final Fantasy VII, I've been playing Sonic the Hedgehog since 1991, and this is really my first time playing the Genesis version, because I grew up with the 8-bit versions of the game on the Game Gear. So, and I've done previous streams, if you want to check out the VODs for them, where I played the Game Gear version and went for 100% runs of that. And last time I actually imported the European cartridge for the Master System version of Sonic the Hedgehog. And I 100%ed that, because it is very similar to the Game Gear version, but it's very different as well. The stage layouts are different. It's generally a little more challenging. So, yesterday on stream, I beat that with 100% with all Chaos Emeralds, and then switched over to Sonic the Hedgehog here, running on my Mega SG, and, oh shucks. So I'm really, even though I've been playing Sonic since 91, I'm really not that familiar with this version, and for Sonic 2 and 3, I actually never played either of those games before, so I'm 100% blind on them. So, go figure, lifelong Sonic fan who's never before really played the Genesis games. But I own all the Genesis games now, and it'll be fun playing them on stream for the first time. Thanks for dropping by. I don't know if you're interested in a 100%. Shucks, I'm just being clumsy now. But I know the handheld versions of this game like the back of my hand. But when it comes to the 16-bit versions, I'm really out of my depth. So I'm learning as I go and getting a little better each time I play through here. And I played. Yeah, Sharkman. If you were specifically interested in, real-time attack speed runs or anything like that, don't feel obligated to stick around, because I know in Sonic, on Switch, when people stream under Sonic, more than half the time they are going for speed records. But thanks for dropping in and talking to me either way. Hey, I'll see you, Marth-chan. I'll see you later. And thanks for dropping in yourself. And let's see. I'll be, I never played Sonic 2. Now, I grew up with Sonic the Hedgehog on Game Gear. I played Sonic 2 on Game Gear. Sonic Triple Trouble. I never played Sonic Chaos on Game Gear. And I loved both of the American Sonic cartoon series, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which is the more comedy-based, sort of slapstick-oriented cartoon, as well as the more moody, adventuresome Sonic cartoon, which was Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, with the famous version of Dr. Robotnik played by Jim Cumming. And he really is a kind of... That version of Robotnik is kind of generic pure evil, but for generic pure evil, that version of Robotnik really nails it for a Saturday morning cartoon. He was a villain worth Sonic's time in fighting. Okay, I'm gonna lose. Unless I can get all the way back here. Come on, there we go. Yeah, he felt like a villain worth rebelling against. And to that extent, I feel like Sonic Sat AM really did a good job with its interpretation of Sonic's world. And they had so little source material to work with. So you have to remember, at the time of they were developing Sonic Sat AM, Sonic the Hedgehog 1 was out, and they had concept art for Sonic 2, so they knew about Tails, I think. So there really wasn't much else to go off of. So when you have a manual, and the only real lore for Sonic is that Dr. Robotnik is capturing animals and turning them into robots, and you make something from there that could support an episodic narrative, yeah, you'd end up with something like Sonic Sat AM. You know, what it really gets me is I'm not just trying to be like, oh, kids these days, but for people who didn't grow up, or people who grew up with Sonic in a post-Sonic Adventure world where they had a lot of characters and lore in the game themselves, and the games had more sophisticated, I guess sophisticated for Sonic, a more advanced storyline with, you know, more plot points and characters to draw from for an animated adaptation. So therefore you get Sonic X, which is very similar to Sonic Adventure in terms of the characters and the plot, and at least in parts. So when you have something like that, yeah, you could... I've seen people who grew up with post-Sonic Adventure Sonic, where you have a lot of characters and lore to draw from in the games themselves, and look back on Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, or Sonic Sat AM, or the Archie Comics Sonic series from the 90s and early 2000s, and be like, what the heck is this? They just took Sonic... This has nothing to do with Sonic. Who are these characters? Who the heck is Princess Sally? Who the heck... Why is this... What's this weird version of Robotnik? Why are the animals actually being transformed into robots? Which actually is based on the American localization of the manual, because in the Japanese, if you do the direct translation of the Japanese manual for Sonic the Hedgehog, explains that Robotnik is capturing animals and putting them inside robots as a power source, and I guess the localizers decided that was too complicated to explain, so in the American manual, they just say that Robotnik is capturing animals and turning them into robots, which is much easier to explain, and that was the basis for the depiction of how what they call roboticization works in Sonic Sat AM and in Archie Comics Sonic. So a lot of elements of what Sonic was back then, and as far as the interpretation of what Robotnik is doing to the animals, in terms of, you know, the characters that they made for these animated adaptations, must seem so bizarre and irrelevant to people. But then they'll go and sort of turn on it and be like, oh, what is... Oh, shucks, I was being clumsy there. And be like, what is Sonic... How could Sega allow this bastardization of Sonic? And I saw this one post on social media that was someone complaining about the Deke versions of Robotnik that were used in Sonic Sat AM and in Adventure Sonic the Hedgehog were bastardizations, and it totally misses... What? That was garbage. I rolled into him in ball form, and it defeated him. You see, it gave me 100 points for beating him. Oh, I have continues. How gracious. Okay, let's go. Oh, and it actually starts me off from the last level I was on. So, yeah, this is... If I was playing the 8-bit versions, whether it was on Game Gear or Master System, I'd probably be nearly through the entire stage by now. Or, well, nearly through the entire game by now. At least halfway through it. Because I've been streaming for a little over an hour now. But, okay. So I don't know, I guess I just have a different impression between being around just having the context of what Sonic was. Well, actually, let me get back to... I know I died there. It got me off topic of what I was talking about, just the Sonic cartoons. It was a social media post complaining that, oh, the American versions of Robotnik in the cartoons and the comics were a bastardization. How could Sega allow this? It's total insult to the original design. But then the character designer who created Sonic and the original version, the Teddy Roosevelt version of Dr. Eggman, you know, the classic Eggman design, actually has cells from the American Deke Sonic cartoons that he's proud to own, and he has them in his collection and tweets about them, including cells of that version of Robotnik. And people don't realize that Sega basically worked with, as they were developing Sonic, they worked with their international, their satellite companies internationally to create a franchise in Sonic that could be tweaked to appeal to the different markets. So that's why in UK had its own Sonic comics, and then America had a different Sonic comics, and America had, Archie comics, and we had the Sonic Sat AM and Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, Whereas none of that stuff was in Japan. And they had their own, you know, side media, and it was sort of made to appeal to the respective audiences, including the version of Robotnik that appeared in the American cartoons. And, in fact, Sega, the parent Sega in Japan, they're making the game Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, which is an arcade game that was only released in Japan. And the game's ROM file, they actually prepared a sprite for the Sonic SatAM version of Robotnik to appear in the game if they ever localized that game for a Western release, which it never actually happened. So this isn't something that it wasn't like Sega gave them, okay, here's what the characters look like, here's what Eggman looks like, and they just tore up the series Bible and said, oh, we're gonna make, we don't need this crap, we're gonna make our own edgy version. It was really a collaborative effort to make different versions of the characters and different interpretations that would appeal to each market, and Sonic having those two cartoons and the comics was a huge contributing factor to its success in North America, and, you know, they're an important part of Sonic's history. You don't have to like it, and it can't seem weird in a post-Sonic Adventure world looking at all these characters that never appeared in any games. I mean, there was a point in Sonic and Archie comic Sonic when they were planning issue 50. There was a mini arc called Endgame that actually resulted in the death of Dr. Robotnik, and then they went through a couple years where they didn't have Robotnik in the... Oh, shucks. I got crushed to death. They went through a couple years where they didn't have Robotnik in the anime, and so in the comic, and they were focused on secondary villains before they brought in a new version of Robotnik from a different dimension. And in the lead up to this, they were actually planning to kill off Sally Acorn, or Princess Sally, and Sega actually went to Archie Comics and was like, okay, you can kill off Robotnik, but don't kill Princess Sally. We may have plans for her in the future. And I know in Australia there was a Sega theme park that with lots of Sonic references all over it, and there were lots of references to Princess Sally, and there were even early versions of Sonic Extreme where they were going to use Princess Sally and different characters from Sonic SatAM. So this was something that Sega of America took very seriously as part of the Sonic universe. It wasn't something that... Okay, shucks. Alright, let's... Oh, I have another continue. Now, I'm talking so much about Sonic that I'm sucking at the actual game, so... I just realized A, B, and C all do the same thing. This is really one of my... Only since I started streaming and I got my Analog Mega SG, have I really spent any meaningful time with the Sega Genesis controller. Being so used to the NES gamepad, this thing feels absolutely gigantic, or at least it seemed that way. It seems normal now, but at the time I was like, wow, this thing feels huge in my hands. And so I'm not used to having this ABC controller. And one thing I'm noticing, because the Super NES pad had the diamond arrangement, so you could hold one button and press another at the same time. With this layout, the buttons, you really can't use multiple buttons. We can only use adjacent buttons at once unless you sort of hook your index finger and middle finger around the controller in a strange way that no normal person holds a controller. So, no, excuse me, I burped there. I don't know if that came out on microphone or what, but... Alright, how am I... There we go. Actually, if I was thinking a little slower, I would have went to the left and scored myself that shield, which was... Actually, I think there's a... What's going on? How could I get to Robotnik so easily? Because I'm in Act 3 of Marble Zone. In the first game... Well, the first time I played this today, I just breezed through this effortlessly and got to Springyard Zone and got all the way to the boss of Springyard Zone. But this time I'm having trouble even getting through Marble Zone. I guess it's just because I have so much muscle memory for the Genesis for the Game Gear version and to a certain extent the Master System version. Well, not muscle memory, just familiarity with the stage layouts. I didn't have to worry Oh, gosh. I'm just not used to the timing for rolling in the ball, maybe. Okay. Because I know I took a death there where it crashed me into him and killed me at the same time somehow. Okay. There we go. Yeah, the Caterkillers are my favorite enemies in this. Well, they're my favorite enemies in the 8-bit version. But in the 8-bit version, like, the graphics are much simpler, obviously, but something about the way they rendered the face makes it look so much cuter. Well, they're both really adorable in their own way. They're also very insidious enemies, because the segments bounce around and can actually damage Sonic after you've actually defeated the enemy. So... Now, I wonder, like, I always kind of, my interpretation of this place is that this is, like, well, obviously it's some kind of ancient ruins, but specifically that, maybe that, I guess that Robotnik is building, slowly turning it into a new base or factory or something like that, which is why you have these sort of machine elements going on with, like, those big pistons that go up and down the lava. Maybe he's building some kind of thermal energy plant. I don't know. Well, thermal energy, that sounds a little... Yeah, geothermal energy sounds too clean for Robotnik style. He'd probably rather use some kind of power source that releases a bunch of pollution. Well, at least I am thinking specifically of the SAT-AM version of Robotnik. Where he... Oh my... I need to focus. Yeah, I know I do like to... I mean, the whole point of me... the only reason I want to do the stream was to talk about different things about Sonic I normally don't get to... Well, things about games I really... Because I don't really talk to video games. You don't really talk about video games with a lot of people outside of the internet. And want to be able to do so while demonstrating the actual games. Let's see how... I love that one moment where the two sprites... where the platforms kind of merge, and it looks like one long platform. Alright. Do I really have to wait until he starts... Because if I try to roll into him from behind, I will take damage from his spikes. So I have to roll into him from the front. Oh! Okay, so if I'm... Even if I'm rolling... Even if I'm rolled up in ball form, if I hit the Caterkiller, or I guess any enemy, with the momentum from the spring, it'll count that as me being damaged, which is not fair, but as long as I know what the rules for this game are, now I know to avoid that, and I know not to use the spring to attack enemies under any circumstances. There we go, I'm in the clear now. Alright. Okay, I landed enough on his hex. Oh my goodness. Am I going backwards? I don't think I am. Oh! I somehow took a different route to get here. Okay, I see what's happening now. I wasn't even paying attention. Somehow I took a different route to get to this point. Yeah, you have to... It's not all just about going fast. I don't like when people complain specifically about this level and this zone. It's like, oh, the Marble Zone shouldn't have been put in the game because Sonic's supposed to be about going fast. But it's like... And come on, it's the people who made the game made this level. This wasn't an accident. Just because he goes... There are parts where he goes fast, that doesn't mean that every second of the game you have to be going at top speed. Now that being... As much as I guess... Looking back, I really get frustrated at... well, I mean, Sega was kind of the underdog in a sense. Yeah. How did I somehow went backwards. How did I go backwards? Okay. How did I go backwards? Okay, I'm going forwards now, I think. That was so strange. I have no idea how I did that. But just how underhanded a lot of the advertising that Sega was using was. Like when there was one commercial where they compared like Super Mario Kart to Sonic the Hedgehog to try to make Mario Kart look like slow and outdated. Well, first off, when they directly compare Super Mario World and Sonic the Hedgehog, Super Mario World is an adventure game. It's a platformer. It's a platforming adventure game where, in a sense, Super Mario World's kind of the forerunner to Mario 64 in the sense of the game really being about, instead of collecting stars, you're finding all these exits. I think there are 96 exits in all. And really that's kind of a precursor to collecting stars in Super Mario 64. So there was kind of already, it moved into a more, oh, am I supposed to go, oh, okay, I see I think I get a sense of what's happening. Alright, I just go to the left here. I'm just trying not to, I don't know how I got lost, that was so strange. And I backtracked through, it seems like a third of the stage? Jeez. But, oh yeah, I never actually finished what I was saying. I keep talking about what I'm going to stream next. So, on Saturday night, I'll be playing Namco Museum Archives, mostly probably the Pac-Man stuff. Then on, oh yeah, I did finish what I was saying, because I said I was going to play Final Fantasy, I was going to play about a half hour or so of Namco Museum Archives. And then for the rest of the stream, I'd be playing the Final Fantasy VII for Nintendo Switch, which I have downloaded already, and I already made a layout for it. What's going on with me? Where it's like I died so many times, and now I'm just breezing through this part of the game. And I have a whole lot of rings, and I want to hang on to these because, oh gosh, because I do want to. Alright, all I have to do is not die. Truer words were never spoken of any video game ever, but... Now all I have to do is follow this pattern, and I'm pretty much set. I don't have to worry about too much. Yeah, this is really simple. Jump. Jump. Straight. There we go. Now it's interesting, in the 8-bit versions of this game, when you beat Robotnik, when you beat his whatever mech he attacks you with, when he flies away, the mech his ship looks damaged, whereas here, it doesn't seem to look damaged, it just kind of looks like, well, it explodes, but then it just flies away, and the sprite for it looks untouched. There we go. Now, I used a couple of continues to get this far. I don't want to... And it's... I don't really... I'll be genuinely shocked if I make it all the way to Scrap Brain on this stream. Because I don't think I've ever... Even back in 2008, I think the furthest I got was Starlight Zone. I don't think I ever beat Starlight Zone. So that's as far as I've gotten there. So let's see how far we can get this time. Last time I got to Labyrinth, and I basically wasted my last life because I got distracted by something cool, and the 16-bit version of Labyrinth that is not in the 8-bit version of Labyrinth, which I'm used to because I've been playing the 8-bit version my whole life. So yesterday I was like, oh wow, look at that, there's like a conveyor belt thing in Labyrinth Zone, and then I let that distract me and let the very same conveyor belt thing that I was marveling at end up taking my last credit. And I was kind of wary at that point that at any moment the stream could end due to my power going out. So when I got the game over there, I was like, alright, let's call a stream at this point, because we already 100%ed Sonic on Master System. I don't have the cartridge handy, but because it's funny, looking at my Mega SG here, actually just has a regular Genesis cartridge in it, whereas usually, because we've been playing the Game Gear and Master System versions of those games, to play those games on the Mega SG, you need a cartridge adapter. So I'm not used to seeing the system in use with an actual, just plain old Genesis cartridge in it without a big, transparent adapter. Oh my gosh. Now, yeah, I've been a lifelong Sonic fan, but I've played very little of the first Sonic game that I'm playing here. Because I was always playing the 8-bit versions back in, in the early 90s. And I never played Sonic 2, or 3, or Sonic and Knuckles. I do have the cartridges for all of them. I'll be laying off Sonic for a long time after this. Oh gosh. There you go. Woo! Oh my gosh. What the buns. Please, stop getting... Ooh, please let me find a ring. I just need a ring. There we go. Now I'm safe. I mean, imagine just falling from that height would, like... Just the fact that you can survive a fall like that is a superpower, let alone having super speed or anything like that. I mean, just going up a 30-foot ladder, like, a lot of people can't even get vertigo just from that. Oh my goodness. Darn purple lawnmowers. Which is what I've always called these things. Now, in the 8-bit version, those guys appear in Bridge Zone, because the 8-bit version does not have a spring yard zone. Oh! Why does it keep... It's like it keeps spawning at the very left edge. I have to get used to this game's logic, I guess. Or the timing for how the enemies act and things like that. But I definitely say this is more... Maybe it's because I've actually been playing it my whole life, but I feel very certain that the 16-bit version of this game is definitely more challenging than the 8-bit version. I mean, they could make it... It's not like a matter of that the system couldn't handle having a more difficult game. It's just sort of what they ended up making. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm not trying that again. I'm just gonna jump over to the... There we go. That's more like it. No purple lawnmower nonsense this time. Point. Actually, what's the switch down here? What's that switch? Okay. I want to land here. What's this? Oh, it's apparently a shortcut to the bonus panel. Well, bonus panel. That's more of my 8-bit Sonic heritage bleeding through there, because in the 8-bit version of Sonic the Hedgehog on Game Gear and Master System, the panel at the end of the stage, it starts off as a question mark, and then depending on how many rings you've collected, or I think the time, or just random luck, you will get different results on the panel. So it starts as a question mark, it can turn into Robotnik, which means no bonus. You could get a Sonic, which gives you an extra credit. You can get... Ooh, gosh. You can get an exclamation point, which means you get to go to the special stage. Or you can get... what else was there? Yeah, I think that's all the results you can get. Oh, there's also a ring icon. And if the sign turns into a ring, it means you get 10 rings added to your to your total. Now, a cool bonus they could have added was to get a shield and start the next level with the shield. But they didn't add that. Because that would have been a cool thing to get every once in a while. It's like, oh, I get to start the next level with the shield, especially on the Robotnik stages. In the... Oh, speaking of shields, we just collected one there. In the... Hey, Marth, how you doing? I'm glad you're back. As I've made it back to Spring Yard Zone, I died about... Well, I didn't get a game over, because... Oh, I did. I got a couple game overs, but I had continues I earned, I guess, through my point totals or something? I don't know. So I didn't have to restart the game, but I didn't have as easy time getting through Marble Zone as I did the first time I was playing it earlier in the stream. So this is my second time today getting this far, getting to Springyard Zone, and if we could beat Robotnik and get to Labyrinth, then we'll be about further as far as we got yesterday. Because yesterday I was worried that I'd end up having a power outage. So it's like, okay, we got 3 acts into Sonic the Hedgehog. We already, I was only a few short of being able to get into the bonus stage. Yeah, it was a few. Yeah, I already beaten Sonic on Master System with all emeralds. And we played through about half, well, close to about 25% of the way through Sonic the Hedgehog for Genesis. So let's call the stream there. Whereas here, I doubt we're actually going to beat it today. And after this, I am putting down Sonic for a while. I'm going to be playing, like I said, I'm going to be playing Namco Arcade Archives on Monday night at 10. Then on Tuesday and Wednesday evening, probably around 5, I'll be playing about a half hour of Namco Arcade Archives, and then I'll switch to Final Fantasy VII, which I have not played since 2002. And that's one thought I didn't really get out. I was talking about this earlier, but the conversation just kind of shifted. We started talking about Crystal Chronicles and stuff like that, which is fine. And it was a good conversation to have, but what I was going to say about FF7 was when I heard that that the remake project was going to be multiple games, I immediately was speculating, like, yeah, Midgar is probably going to be its own game. Because really, it's probably one of the most Midgar... Oh, shucks. I don't have any more continues either. Okay. Alright. Yeah, so I don't... Yeah, let's start from the beginning and play legit. Yeah, let's fire... Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and go into the special stage, just because that's a fun way to start the game off with. No, it's up, down, left, right. Okay. Up, down, left, right. Hold A. Start. And you go to special stage. There we go. Now, yeah, Midgar is probably the most iconic location from Final Fantasy VII. So much of the world building and it's just an iconic location in video games, and you spend so little time there. And one thing I really regretted about the remake is that about the original game, you spend very little time actually on the upper level of Midgar, on top of the sector plates. Because the only time you briefly, I think, are in sector... Oh, doggone. You're briefly in sector 1 after the first reactor mission, and then later in the game you go up onto the center plate to invade the Shinra building. Aside from that, you spend next to no time, and then at the end of the game you go back to the Shinra building. You spend no time really on top of the plate where most of the people in Midgar live. So I think they did a great job actually letting you see how the people on top of the plate live, because most of the time you spend in Midgar in the original game is just in the slums. So it actually let you see like sort of the suburban districts of the upper plate. And so I guess I'll be commenting a lot on things like that as I'm actually playing FF7. I doubt I'll play much further than Midgar. Because the furthest even back in the day, the furthest I ever got in that game was Coral Prison, and I just kind of lost interest. And plus, like, I didn't even... when I played it in like 98, early 98... No, was it early 98? No, it was late 97. It was, yeah, I actually think it was 97 when I first... Late 97, perhaps, when I first played FF7. Because I was thinking of the timeline, because... Yeah... I think I'm gonna be able to... Yeah, I think it was late 97 that I played FF7. I rented it. I didn't even know anything really about Final Fantasy. I just knew there was, like, Final Fantasy games on Super Nintendo. I didn't really know much about them. I kind of thought of them as being some kind of really sophisticated sort of game. I didn't even know the term RPG or anything like that, but I know just all the game magazines were all talking about Final Fantasy VII. So I'm like, oh, I guess I should get this game now that I have a PlayStation. Oh, shucks. Now that I have a PlayStation, so it was my first time with an RPG, so I ended up getting stuck on the first gen. Me and my brother, my older brother, we barely survived the boss rush at the end of Midgar, and then we got stuck. We could not beat the first Genova fight because we just didn't understand a lot of the mechanics of how an RPG worked. And then when I played it in 2002, I had a better sense of like upgrading weapons and how to equip materia and stuff like that, so I was able to do better. But now I know, even back then, I didn't even know about things like the concept of the back row. I didn't really know about using the defend mechanic. So, so now that I know more about how the game works, I think maybe will have an easier time with it. But I really doubt I'll actually play through the entire game on stream. I'll probably at least play through the parts that I'm most nostalgic for, which is pretty much Midgar up through to the first Genova fight, and maybe I'll play up to the Golden Saucer, but I rather doubt it. I probably am just mostly gonna play through Midgar, and maybe the first Nibelheim flashback that takes place after you leave Midgar, because I don't feel like subscribing myself to becoming a Final Fantasy VII stream for the next, month or two. But we'll see. But like I said, this will be the first it's going to be the first RPG I play. So at least I know Midgar will be tame. We'll see how long it takes for me to get through that. Because I remember back when I was first playing Final Fantasy VII, I remember when I realized when you first leave Midgar and go onto the world map, and I was like, wait, that was all just one city? The Midgar really felt big enough that the entire game could take place there and just going to the different parts of it. Because you only, so I just being shocked that the entire game wasn't going to take place in Midgar, and there was an outside world. It was just so shocking. But now that I'm familiar with the game. I mean, I haven't played it since 2002, but I'm familiar with the basic plot elements and what to do and where to go. And I'm probably going to be a lot more savvy in terms of strategy and RPG mechanics. And plus, if I wanted to, the Switch version does have cheat modes where you could automatically level. You could set it so that the characters don't take damage, and then there's another button you could press where there's one button that makes your characters' limit bars fill up automatically so that they can use their limit break moves. And my mother does watch the stream sometimes, because my mother doesn't live with me, but I don't get to see her that often. I haven't, especially now with the whole COVID situation. But the feedback I've gotten back from her, because she watches the stream sometimes, is it's just incredible how much she's gotten to learn about these games that I've been playing. Always, I'd be in the back seat, or she'd be in the kitchen, and I'd be playing in the living room, so these games were always sort of in the background, but she never learned so much about them as she does watching my streams and listening to me talk about these games. And I would be interested to, hopefully she can make it for the FF7 streams as I sort of explain the convoluted story and the lore of those games. Now there's some things that there's some specific scenes in the remake that I feel the remake really failed on. I'm gonna make a YouTube video about this eventually. Oh, and by the way, if you type in videos, you can see my 2 latest YouTube videos and links to them if you want to watch those later on. But I feel I'm gonna make a video about this eventually, and I'm gonna use the streams as an opportunity to capture footage for the videos. But the fall of Sector 7 I feel it was very poorly handled in the remake. I mean specifically the actual scene where you see the plate get detached from the support beam and fall down. I feel like the PlayStation version depicted that much better. It gave a much clearer image of what was going on, and actually, in the PlayStation version of that cutscene, it actually shows the people on top of the plate being affected by the explosion, whereas in the final and in the remake version, you only see the people that are in the slums beneath the plate, you know, how it's affecting them and them running away from the falling debris. But then in the Final Fantasy, in the original version of that cutscene on PlayStation 1, you actually got to see the people on top of the plate that were living in the upper city as the plate is falling, how it affects them. And you see like a news broadcaster who I guess was broadcasting from a studio on top of the plate. You can see him like reacting as the explosion like starts starts to affect him. And I feel like that was a huge missed opportunity. And another thing I don't like about the remake is they're playing this epic, they're playing like this rock or metal music while during the cutscene, while the heroes are escaping on the zip line, and it's playing this epic, you know, energetic, you know, rock music or whatever. And the PlayStation version was silent until it shows President Shinra looking down on the destruction, and it just shows him in his penthouse. And he's listening to opera music, so it's showing like the juxtaposition. He's like living this sheltered, refined life, just casually observing the mass destruction that he is causing, while listening to opera music, thinking that he's so cultured and civilized. Whereas we really don't get that in the remake, with the way they composed it. The tutorial scene. I don't remember. I watched Pete play it. Like, I watched like 90% of the game through Pete Dorr on Twitch. I've watched his streams of it. I don't remember much about how the tutorial scene played out. Oh, yeah. Okay. There we go. Yeah, Swift Pro. Now, yeah, I really don't... I just noticed something. For the first time. You can see on the roboticizer... Well, I call it the roboticizer because of Sonic's head AM, but on the capsule, you can see through the window on the capsule, and you can see the flower in the background. Shouldn't you be seeing the animals inside the capsule? Huh. Yeah, I don't want to think too hard about that one, but... I just want to stretch a bit. Whew. Alright. In about an hour and a half, I'm probably going to call it. We'll see how far I can get. As I'm getting more and more comfortable with streaming for longer and longer. And without a... Because I started to go into this, but sort of drifted off of it, like so many of the topics I discuss on stream. But I can sit... This is my workstation. I do all my work, my writing work, my video editing, blog post writing, all that kind of stuff I do right here from where I'm sitting at. And this is also my little workstation. And I could sit here for as long as I need to, and I basically feel fine. I mean, I don't sit for more than a couple hours anyway, because I do get up and stretch and do things, and I actually kind of don't like sitting around for too long anyway, even when I have the luxury of doing so. But once I started streaming, just like a half hour in, I'd feel like my legs were falling asleep, and I'd feel like my blood wasn't flowing right, and I'd just feel like this coppery taste in my tongue. Like, oh, I've been sitting for 10 hours straight, I need to get up, or I'm gonna like have a blood clot or something. Meanwhile, I've only been sitting there for like an hour. I don't know if it's just nerves or what, but I guess as I'm getting more comfortable, maybe I'm not having all those weird symptoms that I used to have from playing. Because like early on, there's no way I could have sat here for nearing on 2 hours and not having gotten up for maybe a break of up to 10 minutes long. I remember doing like 4-hour streams, and I'd have to take like a 11-minute break to get up and stretch, just so I could have the physical endurance to sit back down. I don't know if it was just yeah, I'll see once maybe if I ever get more viewers, I'll consider doing a 24-hour stream, maybe. or maybe like an 8-hour stream or something like that as a stream incentive. And that's another thing that made me cautious of really getting into RPGs on stream. I'll try something simple that I'm familiar with, like Final Fantasy VII. I know like the first, like just Midgar I'm familiar with. That seems fairly tame. Or Paper Mario I'll give a shot at. I played through about half the game several times. Several different times I played through about half to 60% of the game. And then I just either had to return the game to Blockbuster or I just lost interest in it. This time I play it, maybe I can play through to the end. We'll see how many streams it takes. Because when I don't even stream... My longest stream ever, I think, was my very first stream, which was 6 hours. And I don't think I've streamed longer than that ever. So when I streams average 3 to 4 hours, maybe 5, RPGs become a lot less of a viable option, perhaps. Or maybe it would just take too many streams to get through it all. I mean, the people who could sit down and do like, okay, this week we're going to do... For 2 weeks we're going to do Final Fantasy VII, we're going to do that, we're going to do Final Fantasy IX, and we're going to do, you know, Secret of Mana, and it's not a big deal, but, like, even, like, Pete Dorr, who streams the whole bunch, he rarely does, like, full-length RPGs on stream unless it's something he's training for doing a speed run for. Oh, come on. You know. No. There we go. That's better. That's better. That's where we want to be. No. Okay. Oh my gosh. Come on. There we go. Break through the... Like, what is this even supposed to be? It's just like some... It looks like Sonic, like, got... How did I feel after 6 hours? Well, I felt very tired. I felt incredibly exhausted. I felt like I had this this metallic taste on my tongue that I feel was from blood not circulating correctly. I think it was just a lot of nerves, maybe, because it was my very first stream. And so it was, it is no longer on. It is no longer on Twitch, but it is on my YouTube channel. If I need to make a command for it and add it to the commands that are scrolling around on the bottom of the screen. I have my chat commands for more information on the various things. OmegaSG, videos, Hcoins, which I'm probably never even going to use for anything. Space Cat, who does a lot of the artwork I use in my layouts and stuff like that. Add one that says archive, and I'll link it to, because I do have all of my YouTube videos are posted, well, excuse me, all of my Twitch videos have been posted to YouTube unabridged. Oh yeah, oh, so you saw how it looks in the remake version? Were you not very impressed by it? I mean, everything is... I mean, so many... I think it does genuinely make sense. Like, I know in the original version they swing down on, like, a spare wire that's just hanging around for no reason. But I do like the fact that, yes, these sickos who built Midgar actually made a deliberate self-destruct system to detach the plate from the support system. So, and the computer to activate it is on the actual support pillar. So yes, it would make sense if you have something like that to have a system to escape from the falling plate. I mean, graphically it's way better, but it's just... They don't... Like, they didn't even show... Like I said, in the PlayStation version, it's silent, so it's more dramatic and serious, I feel. They show, like, the newscaster, like, getting wiped out as he sees, like, the plate falling outside his window. And then they show... You know, the people that are just, like, walking around on top of the plate, like... Because even if... Yeah, it's obviously you're gonna get... Yeah, that's... Yeah, that was sad. And if I ever get to play the remake, that is going to be rather... You'll see how they handle Wedge. It's interesting. So I won't spoil that, but if you haven't seen FF7 Remake in general yet, but... They show, yeah, they just did a better job, and plus, in the way they depicted it in the remake version, it looks like the pieces of, like, different sections of the plate are, like, self-destructing and falling off of the main plate. So it makes it seem like they're able to detach specific parts of the plate and leave the rest intact, still attached to the main support structure, when the whole point was that they were blowing up the pillar so that the whole plate would fall. So it's not really, I don't know. Yeah, it's not, you don't have as clear a depiction of what's supposed to be happening in the remake version. And plus, I feel like the musical choice was inappropriate. And plus, they show Kate Sith there, which is kind of supposed to be like an Easter egg. But I watched so many people who played Final Fantasy VII Remake without having played the original. And so they're seeing, I mean, it had the emotional impact was there for people who didn't play... Yeah, for people who didn't play the original version, they understood what was going on, so they're seeing, oh, all these characters are dying and the town is being destroyed, and then they see Kate Sith, like, you know, he's, like, banging his fist, like, you maniacs, what have you done? Like, and so you have all this serious drama going on, the scene of mass destruction, all of a sudden there's a cartoon cat crying for just a few moments, and then it just cuts back like nothing happened. If you don't know who Kate Sith is, that scene is totally inappropriate to the tone of what's supposed to be going on there. I just watched so many people who were actually like, physically crying. Like, people who applied mascara, and their mascara is, like, dripping all over their face as they're crying their eyes out, and then they see Kate Sith, they're like, wait, what's this cartoon cat doing in the game? So, actually, let me use this as an opportunity to adjust my chat box. Make my chat box bigger. Because when I'm looking at the stream, when I'm looking at the when I'm setting up OBS, when I'm not broadcasting, I don't really get to see how big the chat text is. And so it just sort of appears in that little void to the left of me. And it just shows up there so that people watching the VOD can get a sense of what people are saying in chat. And one thing I won't go into it, but also, I just, on a practical level, you know, you'd have to hand wave a lot because this is a work of fantasy. Yeah, yeah, in this game, in the remake, they kind of established this thing where Biggs really loves cats. Okay. This is gonna be somewhat... Okay. So, Marth, the way Biggs looks, and I don't know if you've seen any cutscenes of Biggs in the remake, but the way he looks and the way he talks reminds me of so much of Rocky. You know if you remember Rocky, because there's someone from years and years ago that, but he just reminds me of him in a lot of ways. Yeah, he just reminds me a lot of him for whatever reason. But one thing I do, so yeah, they did I don't feel they did a good job with the directing, I guess, the plate collapse scene. Everything leading up to it is great. Just the actual cutscene, I feel, is just flawed in how they composed it. But they did do a great job actually showing the life of the people in Midgar who live in the upper section, and what, like, suburban everyday life is like for people who actually live in Midgar proper and aren't living beneath the city in the slums. One thing I did think was weird is that all depictions of Midgar make it look like there's a wall around the perimeter of the plates. But when you're in the slums... Oh, by the way, when you're in the slums, they did a fantastic job making you feel like you are beneath a gigantic... Like, it makes you feel like you're beneath the city. Like, you're beneath the plates. Like, when you look up, you could see... like, the undersides of the plates. And you can actually see that there are lamps. Giant lamps set up to give the slums daylight. So, like, they you know, explain like why there's any light at all. But one thing that gets me is it looks like they make it look like there's a wall around the perimeter of Midgar. But when you're in the slums, you can actually see beyond the plates. You can see beyond the city, and you can even see a little bit of the sky. Like, the plates are just, like, the space beneath the plates, like, when you look beyond Midgar, it's just open to the sky beyond that point. Whereas, all the depictions of Midgar include from above, including in FF7 Remake and the original game, make it look to me like there's a wall that sort of boxes in the airspace. Because the idea I got was that the wall was to prevent, like enemies from, like, trying to launch missiles and attack the... It made it look like there was a wall around Midgar, around it, protecting its undersides so that enemies couldn't try to attack the pillars or the support structures if they were trying to invade the city. But for some reason, you can just see the sky beyond there. So that's interesting. But overall, I think they did a really great job fleshing out Midgar. And there are other problems I have with the game in terms of the aftermath of the plate collapse. I mean, just they didn't... I feel like they should have... There wasn't quite as much of a sense that... I mean, something like that should have affected all of the neighboring slum districts. Like, there should have been, like... You know, more... Just the blast of wind from the collapse alone probably would have damaged a lot of buildings and sent debris flying everywhere. There's something else that I don't like about the way they depicted the plate collapse, but it's not really made apparent until the end of the game, so I won't spoil it. But I just feel like they didn't have a clear idea. I don't know, it's just really weird. But overall, now that's really my only nitpick in terms of direction and world building and depiction of Midgar that I really had a problem with. And Sephiroth is more prominent in this version. Earlier on, and he's not really mentioned mentioned until the end of Midgar. Here, has more of a sort of looming presence, and they don't really explain who Sephiroth is. So, because sometimes, minor spoiler, I think this really kind of does happen in the original version too, but Cloud will have sometimes hallucinations that Sephiroth is following him or talking to him, but they don't explain who he is, because, like, yeah, there's a bit of mystery that's built up throughout Midgar, and then once you leave Midgar, you get the flashback where you get the backstory for Cloud and Sephiroth's relationship. But here, you don't really learn who Sephiroth is, so there's just this evil man who's Cloud keeps having nightmares and hallucinations about, and they never really explain it. He's just a evil man with a sword that you don't know why he's there, because otherwise the main enemy is obviously Shinra at this. So I think they didn't handle that very well, but aside from that, I think they did a fantastic job. Okay. Let's see if I can get past... Let's see if we can get past Springyard Zone. Let's see if we can do this. Okay. Goes down, we get across here. There we go. Jump. And I do want to see how far I can get, because after this I am going to put down Sonic for a long time. Sonic games in general. And focus on other stuff. Because I'm going to try this new schedule starting this week. I'm going to be doing 3 streams for the first time in a long time. My first 2 or 3 weeks I did 3 streams each week, and then I cut it down to 2 so I'd have more time to work on YouTube stuff. Now that I have YouTube back up and running, and plus I've just tried to figure out how I could do the streams without, you know, disrupting my schedule and my responsibilities. Because if this plan works, I could probably do at least 1 nighttime stream per week starting at 10. And at least 2 daytime streams, and then once or I could possibly do up to 2 nighttime streams and 2 daytime streams per week. But this week I'm just going to be doing 1 nighttime and 2 daytime streams, and then I'll be able to just feature a lot more games that I've been raring to go on. Now, this last week I have been playing a lot of games I've already played earlier in the streams, just because I need to test my new internet connection, make sure I wasn't losing streams to drop frames and lost connections. And we are having... I am still waiting to see what goes on in terms of getting that house's electricity worked on. So if my stream cuts out, because I have been streaming for 2 hours at this point, so if I lose the stream, I am probably going to call it there. Am I going to stream any Pokemon games? I'd like to stream some of the older Pokemon games. Maybe there's like maybe a 10% chance I might actually stream Pokemon Sun and Moon. Excuse me, I mean Pokemon Sword and Shield, which I do not own, I have not played. And it really kind of, I feel sorry for this fact, but I'm not impressed with Sword and Shield. If I played it, I'd have fun with it, but with all the games I have to play, and the limited time I have, I'm not starved for entertainment. I don't feel like I'm missing out on something. I will eventually probably play it. I mean, I've been speculating for years and years what, you know, the Pokemon world's take on Great Britain might be like, so I'm interested in it just from that standpoint alone. And for the first time, a mainline Pokemon game is easy to stream without resorting to emulation since it's on Nintendo Switch. But I feel like Game Freak, they probably needed another year to work on the game. And I feel like the multimedia franchise aspect of Pokemon, when it comes to the toy licenses, the clothing licenses, the animated tie-ins, they all are kind of demanded Game Freak to hurry up and make a new mainline games to advance, to make new material for tie-ins. And because of that, the game suffered. They probably should have had another year to work on the game and make it the best product it could be. And I just don't feel... I feel like it's substandard. When I see a four-legged Pokemon, like, I forgot what it's called, one of those legendary wolf-like Pokemon that with the sword and the shield or whatever, I saw a cutscene where one of those Pokemon turns around, and it's a cutscene, so it's not a CG, it's not like a FMV, but it's a cutscene in the game where it turns around and walks away, and it just pivots like it's standing on a turntable. It doesn't actually properly pick up its legs and turn around. It just pivots in place like it's on a doggone turntable, and that is literally PlayStation 2 or even PlayStation 1 level animation. And a lot of the battle animations are incredibly unimpressive. Game Freak for a while has, I think, been really getting away with having a substandard or production values, but it was acceptable because it was on a portable system that has limited capabilities. And even then, when I would play like Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which I loved, by the way. I loved it probably even more than Sun and Moon, my time playing Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. There we go. Oh no! Oh no, please don't die. Okay, there we go. There we go. That was close. Whew. Yeah, Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, when you go underwater, and I'm playing it, when there's a Charizard, and you're playing with him underwater in a battle, and, okay, yeah, there are ways that flame can burn underwater. Oh, you didn't like the Ruby and Sapphire remakes. I heard for people who played the... Oh, shucks. I know I think the features that were added in Pokemon Emerald weren't present in the Ruby and Sapphire remakes, and a lot of people were really frustrated with that. I was personally happy with it. Well, I liked what I really loved was, well, the way what they did with Mauville City, I think was great, because Mauville City, even when I was playing the Game Boy Advance version at the time it came out, I was feeling like this city's kind of pointless. It's just a Pokemon Center, it's just this little town with a Pokemon Center and a gym and like the casino, and there's really nothing much going on in that city. But I love the originals, and plus what frustrates me about the remakes is they did not improve the navigation of the water routes. They could have made it like in Pokemon Black and White, when you're in the desert, only the dark sand you only get wild Pokemon encounters when you're traveling in the dark sand, so it's kind of like how you know you're going to get wild encounters when you walk through the tall grass. But so they could have made it like, oh, if there's water that looks a certain way, you know you're going to get encounters there. But they just made it so all water provides, gives you random encounters. And they could have, and navigating that large open area of water can be ambiguous with no map. They should have added a temporary map that maybe appears on the lower screen. Otherwise, I do feel like the touch screen, the lower screen integration outside of battle was some of the best in the DS and 3DS era of Pokemon games. All the different apps and little things you could choose to have on your lower screen. I love the radar, the radar thing that lets you see which Pokemon are around. It let me, went a long way to helping me fill out my Pokedex. Yeah, I don't think I got lost. I guess I just didn't have that particular problem. And what I find funny is when it comes to the EGM reviews, people, it's still a meme to this day, like 7.5 too much water, when they gave the Pokemon Omega Alpha and Ruby and Sapphire remakes on 3DS like a 7.5, which, mind you, is not a bad score. People, there's no point in having an out of 10 scoring system at this point, because anything less than a 9, people will freak out online like, oh, they trashed the game. They gave it a terrible review. It only got an 8. It only got a 7. When it's like, okay, if at that point you might as well pass. You might as well. yeah, Swift bro. At that point, you might as well rate the game on a pass-fail basis, or like a one, or like a pass-fail, or. Yeah, might as well just rate the game on a pass-fail basis. If anything less than a 9 is going to be treated as a scathing review. So they gave it a 7.5. People got mad for saying that they didn't improve the water navigation routes, and they say like 7.5 too much water, like that was the entire review, when all that was they just used a couple of like single line like bullet points to summarize the end of the review, and one of them was too much water. And they acted like that was the entire review, when they explain in the review what they mean by that, what they meant, and the complaint was 100% on point. I love the game, it's one of my favorite Pokemon games, but they had an opportunity to improve the navigation of the water sections, and they didn't use it. And then there was another outrage at Pokemon Sword and Shield, and they gave it like a 9.5 or something like that, and it seemed like they were refusing to acknowledge the problems the game had. Like, I saw videos, different, gameplay videos people had of different glitches they encountered, unimpressive or bad animations that they encountered, where it's like, okay, Nintendo, especially Nintendo fans, not even Pokemon fans, just Nintendo fanboys, the real partisan Nintendo ride or die people, that will make fun, especially in the Wii era when Nintendo wasn't getting those kind of games, when they were giving, when they'd make fun of games like Assassin's Creed, or like annualized releases on the HD consoles, when the graphics weren't loading right and they had to patch things in, like aha, look how glitchy these HD games are. Meanwhile, Nintendo gets it right the first time, and they don't need patches, and they have this high quality control standards. But then, when there are these similar glitches and crazy things happening, malfunctions of the game in Sword and Shield. I don't know if there are patches or whatever to fix those things or what, but just the fact that they were there at all. And, like, I used to listen to IGN's Nintendo podcast. I used to listen to it regularly, but then, and the review of Pokemon Sword and Shield, I think it was Audrey, whoever it was, I know it was one of the women who are on the podcast, who reviewed Pokemon Sword and Shield, were basically accusing people who are pointing out problems with the game of trying to gaslight Nintendo fans or Pokemon fans and making up fake complaints about the game and using like edited or fake versions of the game to criticize the game. And it's like, okay, you can like it all you like, but when you accuse people who are pointing out these problems that we could see sometimes in actual official material that Game Freak and Nintendo and Pokemon have released of their game, and accuse them of trying to gaslight people, you're trying to gaslight people. And it's not like I wanted the game to be bad. It's not like I don't know if it is bad, but didn't want the game to have the problems that it has. I'll probably play the game someday in spite of the problems it has, but I didn't want things to be complained about. I wanted this to be the best Pokemon game ever. And when there are problems with it, and I really feel like the people making the game knew that these problems were there and didn't have the time to do anything about it, because the multimedia elements of the franchise sort of pressured them into releasing the game as soon as possible. When they probably... oh my gosh. Okay. Let's see if I have any continues. There we go. Yeah, and after that, I really stopped enjoying the game. And ironically, after that, I think it was the following episode, or even later in that same episode of the podcast, where she was accusing people criticizing the game of gaslighting Pokemon fans who enjoyed the game. She actually discussed the pros and cons of the games and discussed a lot of problems of the game that had nothing to do with actual malfunctions and things like that. I mean, just such basic things where if I play the game, I don't know. I mean, I will play the game if I were to buy the game, I would probably buy both of the expansions, because it's better than having a third version, as it's called. Because like, when Pokemon, like, Ultra Sun and Moon came out, I didn't buy that. I was like, this does not offer enough unique content. I already played through this game. I'm not playing a slightly remixed version of it. You know, I'm not paying full price for what should obviously be DLC, which is this kind of additional storyline where I guess Team Rocket comes from a parallel universe where Team Rocket won and was never defeated, and teams up with all the evil teams from previous Pokemon games, and whatever they were going for with that. It's an interesting idea, but that probably should have been DLC. And the 3DS... whatever. I have to learn this game's little tricks and all that. But the 3DS was fully capable of supporting DLC. So the fact that they charged full price for another version of the game, like I didn't buy any third versions. I didn't buy Pokemon Yellow. I rented it. But I didn't buy Pokemon Yellow. I didn't buy Pokemon Emerald. I didn't buy I didn't play Diamond and Pearl. So if I did get into that, I was for a while considering Pokemon Platinum, but then Heart Gold and Soul Silver were out, so I wanted to just get straight into those instead. But I don't buy the third versions of games. Now I played Black 2 and White 2, and I don't know why people call Black 2 and White 2... I see some people argue that those count as third versions. If Black 2 and White 2 are not sequels, then there's no such thing as a sequel. I mean, they added like 30% more to the game world. It's a unique story that continues on from the plot of the previous one, whereas usually third versions are like a parallel universe version of the original game, where there's where some plot elements are changed or remixed. So Black 2 and White 2 actually progressed the story and had a unique plot and added a lot more to the game map. But whatever. I'm getting a little upset because I wanted Pokemon to be cool, and like it was so... Gen 5 was fantastic. I mean, it was so cool being from New York City, and when Gen 5 was out, when there's like the new Pokemon region is based on your own region that you live in, and you could actually recognize, oh man, that's like Nacrene City is like, oh, this is like Dumbo, and the tracks are based on the J Street Connecting Railroad, or it's like, oh, here's the airport with, you know, the airport with the community gardens. This is just like in Floyd Bennett Field in Queens. So you can actually recognize things from your real world, and it was an excellent game that did a lot to advance Pokemon. My only regret is that they didn't hold off and make it for 3DS instead, but it was still a great game on the DS. Oh, come on. There we go. Yeah, they clearly programmed in some kind of unique mechanic for this ramp, because left to its own natural physics, Sonic does not gain momentum like that. And then, what? And then the next games were based on France, so it must be so cool to be a Pokemon fan in France at that time, and have a region based on your actual country. Or to be a Pokemon fan in Hawaii, and have a game based on your state. And to be a Pokemon fan from Great Britain, and you have these kind of these games that are far less than what they should have been. I kind of feel bad for them. And I'm not saying that if you enjoyed Pokemon Sword and Shield, you're wrong. I'm glad you. It's not like if I play it, I'm gonna eventually play it. I want to play it sometime or another. It's just not a priority. And when I do play it, I'm going to probably, I'm probably gonna enjoy it for the most part. But I'm going to see all the things that are like, okay, these are recycled 3DS assets. This animation is not impressive. These battle animations are inferior to some of the battle animations from Pokemon Stadium on Nintendo 64. These elements of the game aren't. If a Zelda game, if a Legend of Zelda game, or a Pokemon game, if a Legend of Zelda game or a Super Mario platformer shipped with the level of production values of Pokemon Sword and Shield, it would never be taken seriously. But somehow Pokemon just gets, well, at least for largely a free pass, and Pokemon Sword and Shield sold better than ever because you have this revolving door audience of 10-year-olds, 10 to 12-year-olds that are, it's all new to them, and they have so. As long as the kids are enjoying it, and as long as there are more games coming out, there's always hope for improvement. But at the same time, when they can have such great financial results with such disappointing quality. Now, I still love Pokemon to death, but most of my enjoyment with it comes from inside my own head. It's really, a lot of it comes from just my own imagination and what those games mean for me. So, no matter how bad the games get, or how unimpressive the games get, I will always have that aspect of it to enjoy. So, I'm not too upset. I mean, I'm talking about it, I'm really impassioned, obviously, but I'm not mad. It's just a video game, and someday I'll play the game, and when I play the game, I'll enjoy it. So, in spite of its flaws, but every second I play it, I know we could have had much better, and that's going to be very frustrating. I mean, someday if I ever start taking in subs, or if I ever get a lot of, if I get a lot of paid subscriptions someday if I open up for that, or get a lot more viewers and followers, and a lot of people ask me to play Pokemon Sword and Shield, I'll go ahead and do it. But it's not a priority for me at all. Now this is the. Hey, I'll see you around. Enjoy your dinner, Marth-chan. Woo! Yeah, so, yeah, no matter how unimpressive the games get, the fun I have with Pokemon is mostly, through my own imagination and my own personal enjoyment of it, and that can't be taken from me by the games being unimpressive, so. There we go. I'm just gonna, They're closing in on the furthest point I've been in this game, so there are so many more air bubbles in this compared to the 8-bit version. Now, that may have to do with... Okay, there we go. There we go. There we go. Now here we are. This is as far as I've ever gotten in this game, at least in the current playthroughs. I'm gonna probably play for an hour or more and call it, whether regardless of how far I get. Okay. So you just have this cute little element there. Now, that is a collapsing floor if I've ever seen one. Or not. I thought it was a collapsing floor. Oh, there's a really low-flying airplane passing by overhead. Okay. How am I supposed to get that high? Oh, okay, I see. Oh, gosh darn it. Come on. Oh, at least there's still rings I can grab down here. There we go. Yeah, well, does this version have that freaky music, that pulse-pounding music that plays when your air supply starts to run low? I know Sonic 2, I think, has that, but I don't know if this one does. But I know, in this version, there are definitely way more air bubble spots, and the air bubbles come more frequently and reliably. I've actually lost credits in the Sonic for Game Gear from I reach an air bubble point, and the air bubble just never spawns, so... Oh, wow. Now, in the Game Gear version, in the 8-bit version, the spikes would actually... No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't completely retract underground. They would act like here, where they go mostly underground. Oh, yeah, it does have that freaky fanfare that dun 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 dun. Oh, man, I'm gonna hate that as I get further into these stages. Oh, so this is now that we've gotten to that checkpoint, I'm now further than I've ever gotten in this game. At least in terms of... What is this, a block of cheese? Oh, okay, it's a cork. That's cool. That definitely was not in the 8-bit version, which is something you're going to hear a lot of me saying. Alright, I see it hiding there. A little butthole. Trying to burrow underground. Okay. Oh wow, an Orbinaut, and they're huge in this version. I'm used to... Yeah, oh my gosh. Okay, can I push this? Okay. Oh my gosh. Now, I'm guessing those serve as a hazard when the water level falls. My all-time favorite zone. In this Sonic game, or in all Sonic games in general? That's gonna radically affect the answer. There we go. There we go. What's down here to the... Okay, there's nothing over here. All of them. All Sonic games. My favorite zone of all time. I think my two favorite... Well, 8-bit... Well, I don't know how Scrap Brain looks in... Actually, if I'm gonna play till we get a game over. And I want to just take a look. I'm going to use the level select code to go to Scrap Brain and just see how it looks. I don't have a huge... This game is harder and I'm not familiar with it, so I'm probably not going to get to Scrap Brain. Once we finish this credit, maybe I'll call a stream, or, at the end of, in about 50 minutes or so, whichever comes first. But I want to take a look at the 8-bit version, the 16-bit version of Scrap Brain, and see how that looks. Because I know the sprite work in the game and the 8-bit version is fantastic. And I just don't know how it looks in the 16-bit version, but I do know that at least in the 8-bit version, like the way they made the skyline look of the city, it's like dusky twilight, like late afternoon with like a red sky, and you see oh shucks. Come on. And you see all of the factories and the skyscrapers. And so I just love that. So that's a cool zone. I like just thematically. And what else do I like a lot? I like, and aside from that, Sunset Park zone in Sonic Triple Trouble is also fantastic, just theming. It's also going with the theme of a of a dusky, late afternoon city, factory-full mechanical city. We have Sunset Park in Sonic Triple Trouble. And I like that. There's the theming and everything. It made me feel like when I was playing Sunset Park, I felt like I could be in, you know, Robotropolis from the Sonic SatAM series. Except for in the cartoon, they always depict it being like looking like it's nighttime in Robotropolis, whereas there it's obviously at like sunset because it is Sunset Park. But it felt like if they ever depicted Robotropolis during like the afternoon or daytime or evening, that could be Sunset Park Zone. And I'm kind of minor spoiler here. If you're not familiar with Sonic Triple Trouble, Sonic Triple Trouble does this amazing thing, and you can see this. What was it? Gunstar Heroes did a stream of Sonic Triple Trouble, and he was blind. He was totally new to the game, and he never. Well, Sunset Park Zone Act 2. Well, in Sonic Triple Trouble, the first 2 acts are platforming stages. Then the 3rd act is just the boss stage. And what they did was, okay, I'm gonna have to backtrack and find oh, there's the switch. Because it was meshed in with the monitor that I already destroyed, I kind of didn't realize it was there. Oh gosh. There we go. I kind of didn't realize the switch was there. And where this is the only 2D Sonic game I know of that does this. If the Genesis games do it, I don't know. Like, as far as Sonic 2 and 3 and Sonic and Knuckles are concerned, if they do and you know about it, don't tell me, because I don't want to be kind of blind for those games. But it's the only Game Gear Sonic, and the only Sonic I'm aware of, where when you get to Act 2, seamlessly transitions into Act 3. And it's really cool because the boss of Sunset Park Zone is a train. Well, you run across a train, and then you fight a robot that is attached to the locomotive. And when you're playing through that part of the game, you spin the bonus panel that at the end of Sunset Park Act 2, and then the bonus panel like sinks into the ground and sinks into like the roof of the train cars, and then the train starts moving, and it turns into an auto-running segment that leads you to the boss, and it plays this really awesome music. Okay. You could lovely write off with that freaky drowning music. Thank you very much. And so because of that, the theming and the way the transition into the boss fight works. Oh man. Oh my. Okay, that's some butt. I guess the water slowed me down enough that I didn't have enough momentum to attack the orb. Did you see that? That was garbage. That was stolen from me. I hit the invincibility block, then the spike killed me. This game has so many cheap deaths. All right, this game has way more cheap. How does the 16-bit version have more glitchy, cheap deaths than the 8-bit version? I mean, not that this isn't a great game, but oh, excuse me, that's not what I meant to do. We're gonna call this stream in a little while. But what I want to do, so those are a Scrap Brain for, well, let's go. Oh no, I have to hold A and press start, excuse me. Yeah, up, down, left, right, hold A and press start. Actually, I'm tempted to, I'll be right back. I just want to get my cartridge. No, I couldn't do it now because I can't jump straight to Scrap Brain Zone in the 8-bit version. But I was going to directly compare the two. Okay, so Marble Zone. Wow, they're not listed in the actual order because Starlight Zone here is before Spring Yard Zone, and here it's Green Hill. The actual order is Green Hill, Spring Yard, Labyrinth, Starlight. No, it's Green Hill, Marble, Spring Yard, then Labyrinth, then Starlight, then Scrap Brain. And the first I ever got was Scrap Brain. Let's see what Scrap Brain... Now listen to this. I don't know. The 8-bit version of this track, which was rearranged by Yuzo Koshiro, I just think it's a much stronger track. The melody is more developed here. The melody, I mean, in the 8-bit version, the melody is much better developed, and here it's kind of more of an ambiance. Now, the background looks cool, I guess. Yeah, I think the 8-bit version of this track is better. Now, the sprite work for the background of the city here is cool, but something about the 8-bit version of the backdrop here, with this, the fact, the domes and the skyscrapers and those oil refinery things with the flame jets, something about that is much more... It just pops more. If you want to look at my VODs, you could check out the part, because I spend a lot of time in Scrap Brain in my VODs. You've probably seen them before anyway. I just feel like it's much stronger. A much stronger version of... Yeah, I just feel like the backgrounds... It looks cool here. I do like it here. But I just feel like I like it a lot. This looks really cool. So I do like both the 8 and 16-bit versions of Scrap Brain, mostly for this backdrop here. But I feel like the 8-bit version, something about it pops more to me. Something about it, I feel has slightly more personality, even though these are both fantastic. The 8-bit version of the 8-bit version of the music's definitely better. But yeah. Well, let me take a look here. I mean, I only have... Yeah, I think I'm just gonna call the stream there. I thank you so much for dropping by. I'm gonna say goodbye to Sonic for a while to come. We are going back to it eventually, but my next stream on 10 o'clock on Monday night, I'm gonna be playing Final Fantasy VII. Then at 10 o'clock on Monday, I'm gonna be playing Namco Museum Archives, mostly Pac-Man stuff, but it will be probably a variety stream. And then the following 2 days on Tuesday and Wednesday at probably 5, I will be playing about a half hour of Namco Museum Archives just to break in the stream, and then mostly it's going to be Final Fantasy VII for those 2 days. So thanks for dropping by, thanks for your support, and thanks for watching.